Good evening, class. I am Tiffany Fosno, and I will be presenting Civilizations of Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. I want to first start off with a short introduction of myself. I am starting my senior year at Adventist University of Health Sciences, and I am dual degree in a Bachelor's of Science in Biomedical Sciences and an Associate's of Science in Radiological Sciences. I hope I'll be using my associate's degree to become an X-ray tech and my bachelor's degree to hopefully go on to medical school and then become a doctor. All right, let us begin. The two civilizations that I chose to compare and contrast are China and Rome. I included a picture of each of those civilizations' flags. It's interesting to me that both flags have red and yellow in them. We'll start off with China because in chronological order, China came first. So it was till 221 BCE. Important geographical features are the Yellow River and the Yangtze River. The Yangtze River has warmer, wetter, and more lush of a groundings than the rest of China, so that's important. It also includes a soil called loess. That's fine, wind-driven earth that is fertile and easy to work even with simple tools. Very good for farming. This is what gives the name of the Yellow River, because of that color of the loess soil. There's mountains, deserts, and grasslands all in China, which I did not know that there were deserts, so that's something interesting. All right, let's move on to the sources of trade. They traded millet, rice, and silk. Millet was good because it came from the rivers. Now let's move on to the Shang Dynasty. The Shang Dynasty covers the time period of 1500 to 1050 BCE. This time period is noted as the Bronze Age due to writing, metalworking, domestication of the horse, and those types of upgrades. It was not necessarily an urban civilization. There were royalty, beautiful bronze vessels, and during this time period is where we get the logographic script. So each word was represented by a single symbol, instead of like in our alphabet we have each letter and then the letter makes up a word. Now the Zhou dynasty covers the time period after the Shang all the way to 400 BCE. During the Zhou dynasty is when we come across the important Book of Documents, and it describes the Zhou conquest of the Shang. So good war strategies and different kinds of dominance. There's also the Book of Songs, which is the earliest Chinese poetry. Now we will move on to the Warring States period. So this lasted from 403 BCE to 221 BCE, and this was fueled by the development of new weapons, new war tactics, and so things got pretty violent. One of the tools was a crossbow. I've used one of those myself. Now we'll move on to the religious aspects. So we have Confucianism. Confucius was a man of ideas, as the book describes him. And he was theoretical and metaphysical. He spoke of an ideal age, kind of reminds me of utopia. He was an advocate for gentlemanly conduct. Good, chivalry. Now, as far as Taoism goes, Taoism was different because instead of making humans and the actions of humans a concern, it was more of a bigger picture focus. So seeing the whole picture rather than just one specific circumstance. Then we have legalism, and it's kind of self-explanatory of what their emphasis was, and it was the law. Now let's go on to Rome. So the Roman Empire was during the time period of 1000 BCE to 400 CE, and as we know, Rome was located on the peninsula of Italy. There were Roman myths such as the Romulus and Remus myth of how Rome came to be. The source of trade for Rome was pottery. Our book gives us beautiful pictures of their design, and we know in their architecture of things such as the Colosseum. The main religions for the Roman Empire were Christianity and pagan, and basically pagan at this time was any religion other than Christianity. There were economic issues at this time, such as taxes. A different time period than that of China. So, criteria for a great civilization. What comes to mind for me is utopia. So we think of government. You want a strong government, a government the people can trust, leaders who are honest and listen to the voices of their people. We think of a language. So if English was not my first language, I probably would not choose that as my civilization's language because it is so difficult for people of other languages to learn. Alphabet, you want one that your people can identify with and know and use. Military, you want a strong, forceful military so people do not mess with your civilization. Landscape is important for the well-being of your people, for agriculture and food and different things like that. And then trade, what do you have to offer the rest of the world so that your country can be profitable? To contrast the 21st century with the civilizations before, I think as a whole in the 21st century we have a huge focus on technology, which has its pros and cons. I think now versus back then there's not as many people with hands-on skills. So, you could, when I say hands-on, I mean like building and being like a fixer. I don't know. Like nowadays we go get our degree and then we hope for like a desk job or something that's not as heavy of manual labor, some people. I believe we still are increasing our value of the arts. I think that will forever be an important piece in humanity because it's such a good expression of emotions and personality. I think that the endurance now versus back then is very different. I think that back then there weren't as many distractions, but now if people don't like what's going on in their civilization, they could just leave and pick a new one, or there's not that loyalty aspect. As far as economic differences, there is so much debt in this world compared to back then. Now, we're steadily decreasing the aspect of slavery, which is great. So there's more freedom of choice. Like I said before, if you don't like your civilization, you can kind of just up and leave it. So there's positives and negatives for each of these points, and thank you for listening.